All right, we are back with no capital. I'm Dr. Marcus Board here with hypersclub.com. Let's talk about politics this week. Today, we are going to talk about Assata Shakur, the revolutionary who recently passed in Cuba in exile. And we're going to talk about Kamala Harris, the former vice president of the United States, former Democratic Party nominee. I want to talk about these two figures, why they are so different, and yet why people continue to put them together. I want to talk about the world and my answer to why people insist on painting Black women with this broad brush and how that hurts us as a people. I'm Dr. Marcus Board. Let's get to it. Born July 16th, 1947, Joanne Deborah Byron, then Joanne Chesimard, who eventually became Assata Shakur, was born in New York City and grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina. She ran away from home a lot of times. She was taken in by other family who would then act as her lawyers. She became involved in political activism at the Borough of Manhattan Community College and the City College of New York. And it was after graduation that she adopted the name Assata Shakur. Assata Shakur, the name means she who struggles and a thankful one. That was who she allowed herself to become, a person who struggled and who was thankful for that struggle. For you Christians out there, I believe it was a story of a man named Jacob who struggled with God and ended up with a bum hip to show for it, but also a blessing. So, do what you want with that one. So then, between 1971 and 1973, after joining the Black Panther Party and becoming a member, she was charged with several crimes, led to a manhunt on May 2nd, 1973. Her and BLA members Zaid Malik Shakur and Sundiata Acoli were stopped at a New Jersey turnpike, escalated into a shootout with state troopers. One of the troopers was killed. Zaid Shakur was killed, and Assata and Acoli were wounded. Her trial was in 1977. She was convicted on multiple charges, including the murder of that police officer and the assault on another one, sentenced to life plus 26 to 33 years in prison. Pause. Let's take a second to think about the state of the justice system in 1977. Are you thinking about it? You're thinking about 1977. 1977. Ronald Reagan is the governor of California. In New York, 40 years later, Eric Garner would be killed, saying, "I can't breathe." 40 years later. Now, I don't know how you feel about time and how things advance or change. Maybe things get better, they stay the same. They change, they get better, they stay the same. I don't know where you're at on that. But what I'll say is, in 1977, no, I have absolutely zero confidence that any Black person can be judged by a jury of their peers, no less than I have any confidence that Black people can be judged by a jury of their peers today. We do not have any safety, security, or peace from these people. She was serving her sentence, unpause. Let's get back to it. She was serving her sentence at the Clinton Correctional Facility for Women in New Jersey when she escaped in 1979 with the assistance of her comrades and the May 19th Communist Organization. She was granted political asylum in Cuba. Now, you remember before this, earlier in the 70s, they tried to kill Angela Davis. They tried to kill her. They put her on death row. And while on death row, she sat down and gave an interview. Here's what that interview said.
Yeah, but the question is more, how do you get there? Do you get there by confrontation, violence?
Oh, is that the question you were asking?
Yeah.
See, that's another thing. When you talk about a revolution, most people think violence, without realizing that the real content of any kind of revolutionary thrust lies in the principles and the goals that you're striving for, not in the way you reach them. On the other hand, because of the way this society is organized, because of the violence that exists on the surface everywhere, you have to expect that there are going to be such explosions. You have to expect things like that as reactions. If you are a Black person and live in the Black community all your life, and walk out on the street every day seeing white policemen surrounding you. When I was living in Los Angeles, for instance, long before the situation in LA ever occurred, I was constantly stopped. No, the police didn't know who I was, but I was a black woman, and I had a natural, and they, I suppose, thought that I might be a, quote, militant. And when you live under a situation like that constantly, and then you ask me, whether I approve of violence. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense at all. Whether I approve of guns. I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. Some very, very good friends of mine were killed by bombs that were planted by racists. I remember from the time I was very small, I remember the sounds of bombs exploding across the street, our house shaking. I remember my father having to have guns at his disposal at all times because of the fact that at any moment we might expect to be attacked. The man who was at that time in complete control of the city government, his name was Bull Connor, would often get on the radio and make statements like, niggers have moved into a white neighborhood, we better expect some bloodshed tonight. And sure enough, there would be bloodshed. After the 4 young girls who lived, one of them lived next door to me. I was very good friends with the sister of another one. My sister was very good friends with all 3 of them. My mother taught one of them in her class. My mother, in fact, when the bombing occurred, one of the mothers of one of the young girls called my mother and said, can you take me down to the church to pick up Carol? We heard about the bombing, and I don't have my car. And they went down, and what did they find? They found limbs and heads strewn all over the place. And then after that, in my neighborhood, all of the men organized themselves into an armed patrol. They had to take their guns and patrol our community every night because they did not want that to happen again. I mean, that's why when someone asks me about violence, I just find it incredible. Because what it means is that the person who's asking that question has absolutely no idea what black people have gone through, what black people have experienced in this country since the time the first black person was kidnapped from the shores of Africa.
Violence that we have experienced in this world. Why would we expect these people who have no understanding about what we're speaking of to tell us what is the truth? If you have no understanding, you have no truth. You don't know anything. If you can't dance, yeah, you can be a judge. You can be a critic. There are plenty of judges and critics who cannot actually do the dance. But what you can't do as a poor dancer, like that woman at the Olympics doing the breakdancing, what you cannot do is say, actually, my dance is better than yours. And yet, that's the world we live in. The world we live in today is one that says, we do everything better than you. While we are looking with our eyes at the racists trying to rap. I don't know if you heard that song. I don't even want to send you to it. At the racists trying to do a rap song, calling people all kinds of names, and saying, this is actually what the music should sound like. How? You don't know. And it's not even we created. No, I don't even got to get into that. We ain't got to create something. We can still be better than you at it. It's just that simple. And here she was, anyway, we're back to Assata. Here she was, she escaped, she gets political asylum in Cuba. And that was in 1984. That's 41 years ago. And she stays there for the rest of her life. She dies September 25th. And she's 78 years old. And we are left here to reflect on the life and the legacy of the Black Panther Party, the Black Liberation Army, folks who are committed to Black liberation 40 years ago, 50, almost 50 years ago. And I'm wondering how she thought about her life in hindsight. I'm wondering how she saw the world today. I'm wondering why she never got on social media. I'm wondering what were her thoughts in these last decades of her life. We have a lot of opportunity to connect with each other. We have a lot of opportunity to fight for each other. We have a lot of opportunity to break free of our chains. And I think a lot of the struggle that we have in this life is deciding who to fight with, who to connect with, which chains to throw off. It's unclear to me that there is a right answer every time, right? I don't know how people make these decisions. What I do know is that some people are willing to fight for others even when they're not willing to fight for themselves. That is the type of legacy and esteem in which I hold Assata Shakur. That is the type of pedestal I place her on. Now, she may not want a pedestal, and I get that. She may want to say, "Hey, listen, I am a person like any other, and you should respect me as such, the same way that you respect everyone." And I do, I fully do. And at the same time, I want us to be thoughtful about what it means for a Black woman in 1977 to say, you know what? I'm not interested in the life, the expectations, the pathways that you have set out for me. I will make my own. And, I don't think it's any harder or any easier today, but I still respect the fact that very few people make the choices that she made. And I hope that more people will make them tomorrow. Rest in peace and power to Assata Shakur. May her memory and legacy live on in our hearts, in our resistance, in our liberation, and in our freedom. Somehow, some way, we have connected this moment with Assata Shakur to Kamala Harris. Now, I know what you're thinking. These are two strong, independent, exceptionally successful, brave, and brilliant Black women. And therefore, they should all be upheld despite their political differences in the pantheon of Black people who dared to dream, who dared to be great, who aspired to more in the world, who fought hard to make sure that people had an opportunity to be their full selves. If you want to be a fully actualized Black woman in this world, here are some examples of the diverging roads that you can take. I'm reminded, I hate to keep going back to Angela Davis. I'm reminded of what we just listened to about Angela Davis in Birmingham, Alabama, about the bombings and the killings and the violence that happened there. I'm reminded of that because at that same time, there was another Black woman who was born and raised in that town, who came up in that time, who came up in that era, and went the polar opposite of Angela Davis. That woman's name is Condoleezza Rice. For those who don't know, Condoleezza Rice, Dr. Condoleezza Rice, she's a political scientist. She is a Republican. She was the Secretary of State from 2005 to 2009. This was largely under the Bush administration. Her predecessor was Colin Powell, the highest ranking African Americans in the history of the executive branch until Barack Obama and then Kamala Harris. She's the highest ranking Black woman in the history of the United States, only to be surpassed by Kamala Harris. Now, if we said, oh, we need to honor Condoleezza Rice, everybody would be all up in arms. No, 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 not that Republican woman. And listen, I'm not here saying that at all. That is not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying, point to me the difference between Condoleezza Rice and Kamala Harris. Show me exactly what makes these two women politically different. And I'm not saying this to tear down either of them, to be honest. I'm saying this to prove that the reason why people insist on putting Kamala Harris in the same conversation with Assata Shakur, who fought and lived bravely and brilliantly, and yet tragically in exile, perhaps not tragic that she had, and not her life, but like the exile itself is a tragedy, a travesty at least. And yet, if I said we need to connect Kamala Harris to Condoleezza Rice, you might shudder a little. Why? Why? Because she worked for George Bush? Because she believes in law and order? Because she, you know, was a national security advisor because she wasn't successful enough? What makes Condoleezza Rice so disqualified from being able to stand next to Kamala Harris? And yet you think Kamala Harris can stand next to Assata Shakur. I'll tell you what it is. You think that your heroes are bigger and more important than anyone else's. You think, well, sure, I can acknowledge Assata Shakur because she's not as important to me. Yeah, she's black. Yes, people know her. She's popular. Everybody knows her name. And therefore, I can acknowledge this person because they are well known. But my heroes, they cannot be impeached. They cannot be besmirched. They cannot be, you can't decide who to put them next to. Now I'm telling you that these two black women are the highest ranking black women in the executive branch ever. And yet we can't put them together. Or maybe you think you can. But I bet you would never put Condoleezza Rice next to Assata Shakur. Now, here we are. We're talking about politics. We're talking about a political spectrum. And while we can talk about the liberal conservative spectrum, it's much bigger than that because obviously Assata Shakur is not a liberal. She's much further, right? She's not a liberal. But the liberal and the conservatives, they're connected. There is a spectrum. The radicals and the revolutionaries are disconnected. They want a different world. And so I want to talk about what it means to put these folks together on the same mantle in the same way. So one of the big things that I think is happening is a lot of black people, you know, they are still black people, right? They still got a little fight about them. We still got a little perspective on us. We still got some worldview. You haven't stopped being a black person. We're not all Clarence Thomas. And yet we have adopted a corporate view of life. We have decided that the decisions that we make are more valuable than others. We have decided that our perspective is more important than others. And like a good corporate politics, we have decided that if anybody accuses us of that, we say, no, I'm fair and I'm unbiased. It's like a script that they use. I am good for all these people. Yeah, the decisions I make may not be ones that you like, but you can trust me to make those decisions because I'm fair. And you got to make hard decisions in this world, corporate. You got to make decisions that not everybody's going to like, corporate. You got to give somebody wins and somebody loses, corporate, right? You're deciding the landscape of the fight before we ever start. You've decided who won before we ever started when you do that. That's why the Democratic Party continues to fail. They seem to misunderstand what it takes to win. And we are wrong about that. They don't care who wins. They win no matter what, right? That's why they say it's not important to be the best in the market. It's important to own the market. Then other people can win and lose, sink and swim, but you always win. That's what they're doing. And we have this idea that somehow they are not against us, that somehow they are with us. I just did a panel a few days ago, and it was at the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, and it was with the National Black Law Students Association. Shout out to them for inviting me up there with a really exciting and fun group of panelists. I had a really good time. And the conversation afterwards, I had a conversation with a young person named Courtney afterwards. And Courtney was like talking to me and a good friend of mine who used to be a political director at the Democratic National Committee, a big part of their public outreach, trying to get a voice heard in this election cycle and could not as a black woman. And the person was saying, I mean, she kept describing when she was talking about the Democratic Party, and Courtney, this is, she kept talking about the Democratic Party as we. And she said, I know. I wish they understood that when we needed to run the campaign different so that we could win. And I had to stop her. And me and my homegirl looked at each other like, oh, you think they want to win? She said, of course we want to win. I said, no, they don't. That's not what their priority is. That's not what they need in order to be successful. They got paid, right? So I want to see in 107 days, this book that Kamala Harris is pushing, I want to see what they did with that $1 billion. What did you do in your work that helped Black people. And don't tell me the corporate answer, which is that, hey, my job isn't to help Black people. My job is to win. Well, you didn't win, first of all. Second of all, why is the corporate answer always help the people who have already been helped? That is the thing that drives people away from the Democratic Party. That is the thing. It's not that Black people didn't want to vote for a Black woman. Now, were there people who didn't want to vote for a Black woman? Absolutely. Absolutely. The same way that Kamala Harris also said, I didn't pick Mayor Pete because he was gay. Just a dumb thing to share. Just stupid. I will die on this hill. An absolute stupid thing to say. Ridiculous, nonsense, foolishness. Rachel Maddow asked her about it. She said, no, I didn't say that. I just said America wasn't ready. You said that, yeah, that's what you're saying. You're not saying, well, I didn't pick him because he's gay. You're saying I didn't pick him because they have a problem with him being gay. Baby, listen, you can slice up the sunrise, but it's still gonna be bright. Okay? I'm not dumb. At night, not last night when I was born. So this idea that, and even beyond, parsing words, before I even get through the stupidity, the idiocy of that decision to share that, I'm sorry, of that perspective, the decision that she made to even share it is absolutely ridiculous. That is just a dumb choice. You punch yourself in the face. Like, why would you do that? That's not a wise decision. It definitely doesn't help Pete. And it does not, I have a good friend and a colleague who was saying, well, that's just the harsh truth. It may sting, but America needs to hear the truth. I don't think you need to tell me that racists are racist, or that homophobes are homophobic, or that misogynists are misogynists. I don't think you need to tell all these young Black women who I teach at Howard University that they cannot be president because they are a Black woman. I think at some point you need to tell them, what do you believe? Now, I will give you a little free game here because I am a political scientist. I am an expert. I am tenured. I have been acknowledged by my peers. I am an award-winning writer. I will tell you, 77 million people voted for Donald Trump. 75 voted for Kamala Harris. Hers is the third highest vote count in history. When you say people just didn't show up because they didn't want to vote for a woman, we're talking about the election that had more voters than any other election, except Biden-Trump. And that's because Biden had 81 million votes. We're talking about turnout at a level we've never seen. And you want to tell folks, well, it's because you didn't show up? You want to tell folks it's because Black men didn't vote for her when the same percentages of Black people voted for Kamala Harris as they did last time? You want to tell us that? You want to punch down so bad. You want to blame people so bad that you have no thoughts of saying this party is trash and they deserve the entirety of our ire, none of our dollars, none of our support, because you did this. You failed for 50 fucking years to do anything good or useful to protect the rights that Martin Luther King got shot in the fucking face for. You failed to protect us. You failed to codify these things into law. You failed to make constitutional amendments. You failed to make voting and electoral progress that would assure your position. You failed to do every single thing that Donald Trump is doing for his people. Everything. He walked in there and he took over. You failed to do everything that George Bush did after the Patriot Act, after 9/11. You failed to do that. And all the while you were failing, you were aligning with them. You were Bill Clinton building up the school to prison pipeline. You were Bill Clinton building up mass incarceration. You were Barack Obama dropping drones on people. You were Barack Obama drinking water in Flint, Michigan. You were doing that work. That was you. You were on the watch. And now you want to tell us, well, people just aren't serious. And oh, Hakeem Jeffries, oh, well, we can't do anything about that. Now you want to tell us that, but you have the audacity, the all fucking audacity to tell us that we're the reason why this is happening? Bullshit. Bullshit. It's all cap, the biggest cap you can find. The problem is not us. The problem is these people have power. And if anything, we just need to learn how to fight them. Fight back against these people. There is no rule that is going to come up that will allow us to take what is rightfully ours, to take our resources, to take our culture, to take our power. No rule is going to come up because the thing that we've learned time and time again is that nobody has ever been liberated by appealing to the moral conscience of their oppressors. That is Assata Shakur. And what we seem to not understand is these skinfolk ain't kinfolk. These are our oppressors. The same people who are in that party are our oppressors. And we'll sit here and run all the live long day about how much we love Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett about to not have no job. They are legislating her seat right out of existence. Why? Because they are using power and they are fighting because they know they're in a fight. They know that if they don't fight, they will lose. It's just that simple. And for some reason, we think, no, we can win without a fight. We can take this back without a fight. Wrong. And now let's be clear. I'm on hypersclub.com. I am not here telling you to pick up a weapon and go and harm somebody. That's not what's happening. I'm not telling you to pick up the paws and touch somebody. I'm not telling you that neither. You make your choices. What I'm telling you is that if we trained a group of people to patrol our communities consistently, if we supported them in our neighborhoods to the best of our ability, they got all the regulations, they got all the training, they got all the gun safety, they got all that stuff, and they walked around organized, serious, focused, and submitted to the will of their community, that they protected that space. You know what would happen? Police would stop coming around. You know what would happen? Random incidents of violence would stop happening. How do I know that this is the case? Because we have seen it. It has worked before, and we don't have to go back to Malcolm X. We can go right back to the city of Chicago right now. Ceasefire organizations, people who are committed to this work, but we don't want to support them. We want to support cops because we want to throw Black people in jail. That's the problem. We support prosecutors. And you know what? That's your prerogative. Do I agree with it? Of course not, clearly. My problem is when you decide that people who don't support your vision somehow fit in to your legacy. And that is wrong, wrong, wrong all the way down. You need to be stopped. You are a problem for that. Now, I want to build some bridges, right? I shouted out during the talk at the CPC and with the National Black Law Student Association. I shouted out Southside Together, and I shout them out again. Southside Together on the south side of Chicago. And this is a merging of two organizations, Not Me, We, and Southside Together, Organizing for Power. These two groups merged together. Among their brain trust includes a Pulitzer Prize winner, folks who have done more community work in their brief lifetimes than some people do in entire generations. And what did they do? They took the spirit of Assata Shakur and they compelled Barack Obama through the broker of the city government. They got the city government to say, you know what? We need to support Black people in the eviction capital of the city. The most evicted neighborhood in the city was only going to get worse because Obama decided to build his library there. Now, we're not saying that people don't like nice things. Gentrification is a really complicated concept for folks. They think gentrification means, well, you're making the neighborhood better and getting all them raggedy people out of there. And them raggedy people are you. That's your auntie, that's your cousin. Don't talk crazy. All right. If it's not you today, it's not you yesterday, it'll be you tomorrow. It'll be somebody that you need to care about. Nonetheless, they say, I want to get these raggedy people out of this neighborhood, and that's a good thing. Wrong. Displacement. And they would have us justify that use of violence to displace people to build up the next Kava and Starbucks and whatever else. We have to fight if we want to win. And a lot of us don't really care to put that much effort into it. And honestly, I get that. It's exhausting to be all wound up all the time and turned up all the time. But you know what? A little bit of prevention, drop of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We can't keep turning up after we get killed. We got to build the world we want while we're alive, while we're here. We have to commit some of these resources and this care to our lives now. We have to show a commitment to each other. We have to free our minds, and our ass will follow. That's all I got for today, man. Stay safe, stay Black, stay brave, stay beautiful. Check me out at Prof MBJ. I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok. I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on Spill, and I'm on Substack. On Substack, I'm getting a little writing going, talking about how the news is misrepresenting some of our ideas, how their misunderstanding of politics really fails them. But you're not going to misunderstand politics because you're going to be right here with me next Monday at 8:30, hypersclub.com, and no capital. I'm Dr. Marcus Board. Let's keep growing. Let's keep building. Let's figure out what we want to do in this world, and let's make it. Y'all take care. I'll talk to you soon.